Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John Jane Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the Big Earl Football Podcast, covering the Earlham Quakers here on NCAA 14. And we're here approaching the final quarter of the season, and this Earlham team is 1-8, but it seemed like they were starting to, play a little bit better compared to the first few games. Now remember, back in the first few games of this season, we were actually blown out significantly by Northwestern and Clemson and barely got a win against Transylvania, but we played in some competitive matchups overall. We played against, Defiance and Wittenberg pretty tough. We had a legitimate shot of being bluffed in about the last couple weeks, been a tough one going for us here. It shows that we definitely still struggle going on the road here as well. But we take a look at what's going on next week. This is our final home game of the season, so normally this is our senior day, but we actually don't have any seniors on the squad. That being said, this is also considered a rivalry game for us. We are playing against Franklin College, and they're currently ranked 4-5 on the season with a 3-3 conference record. We're 1-8 with a 1-5 conference record. Now, Franklin, they're better than us across the board. With the exception of the passing offense, we have one of the best passing attacks in all of college football. We're actually ranked number 8 in the nation in passing yards per game, which is promising to see. But, everything else we really struggle in. We do have a top 100 rush defense beyond that, but after that, we're either in last place or second to last place or even third to last place. So it's been a, tough sledding for this squad. Franklin, on the other hand, they have a decent team. They have one of the better offenses in the country. They're 37th in points per game, and their defense is pretty good too. I actually don't know why they're 4-5, to be honest with you. They're solid in just about everything, top half in most stats, and they even have a positive turnover differential, 35th in the country. But we don't have any prospects visiting. We do have a guy injured though. Rob Chapman, one of our star corners, is hurt. He won't be playing in this game, but that being said, though, Franklin has a slew of injuries. They have multiple offensive linemen that are out for the season. And they also have a defensive lineman that, is probable. We don't know if he'll play, though, going forward. But that'll be interesting to see. We do need all the help that we can get going forward. So now we take a closer look at this Franklin roster. And they have one guy on this team that could potentially go to the NFL after this season. Adam Holmes, the wide receiver for the Grizzlies, he's a big guy too. 6'6", 226 pounds. He's having a decent season so far. 40 catches for 4 touchdowns, 627 yards. But he's got some pretty good stats. 86 speed, 93 catch, running and catch in traffic. That's terrific as well. Has fantastic vertical as well. He's going to be a problem for our defensive backs to deal with that 6'6" frame as well. We're going to definitely have to have a double team on him at all times to make sure that he does not get loose, because this kid could very seriously become a problem for us as well. On top of that, Franklin also has a duo in Sean Smith and Marcus Turner. Sean Smith's a little bit more of a power back, but don't confuse that. He still has 91 speed. He's extremely quick. He has a great ability to, break some tackles as well. And he can also, you can do a little something in the backfield as well. Decent catching. Don't let him get into open space. He can be a problem with those, moves they can go with to shake tacklers. As for his backup, the junior running back, Marcus Turner, 6'1", 200 pounds, a speed guy, and he certainly has speed to burn. 97 speed with 96 acceleration and 94 agility. Honestly, what's keeping him on the field is his carrying is a little low for a tailback, only a 72, which is not great, but he's extremely elusive. When this backup tailback's in the game, watch out. He's due for a home run at any given moment. At the quarterback position, they actually don't have that great of a QB. They have Marcus Riley starting. He's a senior redshirt from Martinsville, Indiana. He's only a 79 overall, and he's having an okay year as well. He's actually has less than 50% completion percentage, but that's not what makes him dangerous for the most part, though. This guy has 600 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns, so this seems like a guy that loves to scramble. So if he's someone that we can keep in the pocket, don't let him make him a pocket passer, then we can give ourselves an opportunity to win, considering he hasn't shown that he can pass with consistency over the course of his season. At fullback, who they have starting is sophomore redshirt Tim Allen, who's only a 67 overall, but behind him they have another fullback in Kyle McBride, who's a walk-on from Highland Park, Texas. Seems like a team that does like running the football quite a bit, seeing that they do have 2 tight ends on the roster. Now, wide receiver, I already talked about Adam Holmes. He's an absolute stud, but they have a couple other wide receivers they can go to. Donald Williams and Mitch Edwards, those 2 guys, upperclassmen, know what they need to do for the most part. Donald Williams in particular has 99 acceleration, so a guy that certainly knows what he's doing, really works on his craft. Same thing could be said for Mitch Edwards, but after that, the depth's pretty light. They have Nick Campbell and Justin Ross behind them, but they're only 65 and 62 overall respectively. I would not be shocked if they only ran some free wide receiver sets. At tight end, they have a couple of guys they can go to as well to set up some play action. Matt Larson is a senior tight end from Brunswick, Ohio, and he's a pretty good guy as well. 97 acceleration, great catching as well, 90 catching with 84 speed. He's certainly going to be a catch-up nightmare as well, and he's also a decent blocker as well. He can help in run support as well on top of that. As for the backup, David Scott, he's a junior redshirt, but still has good size though. 6'5", a guy that weighs 272 pounds and has 75 speed despite that. That is going to be a massive issue for us. Doesn't do one thing fantastic, but he's a nice all-around tight end for this Franklin football team. If he's on the field as well, he can do some damage. So at left tackle, ordinarily they have Manuel Dowdell or Scott Davis, but both those guys are out for the season, as I talked about earlier in the podcast. So who's starting out at left tackle is Terrence Easley. He's a true freshman from Marysville, Michigan, and he's not that great. He was going to be redshirt, but because of the injuries, they did have to burn his redshirt. He's got decent blocking abilities, 74 pass block, 71 run blocking, but what really holds him back a little bit is the lack of awareness and speed. He only has 61 speed and 61 awareness as well. That does bring down his awareness to a degree. At left guard, this offensive line in general just does not look fantastic, particularly at the left guard. They have 2 freshmen in John Moses and Joe Wolf, but neither of them are over 60 overall. So someone, a winnable matchup on our side of the ball, for that defensive line of scrimmage. Their center, they do have a promising prospect in Bobby Brink. He's a freshman redshirt from Chandler McAfee, Georgia. A 70 overall guy, good acceleration, solid blocking abilities, and, can keep himself injury-free for the most part. But behind him is backup Mario Allen, who's actually a redshirt. He's 6'6", 307 pounds, but he's not very good either. At right guard, they do have Ross Bowie, who's a sophomore redshirt from Covington, Georgia. He's got good strength on him, 83 strength. That's definitely good to see from a offensive lineman. And he's a good pass blocker as well. He's got 85 pass block. Finally, at right tackle, we got Scott Terry, who's the best offensive lineman for the Franklin Grizzlies. 77 overall guy, so not great. But that being said, he's very aware. He knows what he's doing for the most part and has decent strength as well. He spent some time working on that in the weight room. Going over to the defensive side of the ball, and Thomas Brown, as I mentioned earlier, is injured and will not be playing. Well, he could play. He is listed as probable, so who knows if he'll actually play or not. But on the right side of the defensive line, Mike Hall is starting, and he's a solid player for them. From Screerville, Indiana, he's an 80 overall guy with 96 acceleration on top of it. So once he gets going, he can move pretty quickly as well. Backing him up is Dan Hudson, who will probably move to the left side of the defensive line as a defensive end should Todd Brow can go. And then at defensive tackle, is probably the best part of their defensive line. They got Gary Reed, who's one of the best players on the team and is considered a pass rusher as well. He's got good power and finesse moves and can shed some blocks easily. That's going to be an issue for our interior linemen. Same thing with Dennis Hutchinson and Chris Haynes, 78 and 77 overalls respectively. They are upperclassmen, so they do have some playing experience on them. At left outside linebacker, we have Chris Young, who's a junior redshirt from Niles, Illinois, but not a lot of help behind him, a lot of inexperience. Chris Young, one of the more experienced linebackers, on the outside. And then in the interior, they have Charles Richardson and Avery Harris, also upperclassmen. At the right outside linebacker, there's two guys to watch out for. Casey Triengen, who is a junior linebacker from Gahanna, Ohio, and sophomore redshirt from Calumet City, Illinois, Brian Smith. He's a 73 overall. Now, the secondary is the best part about this defense, and they got a couple of very good corners. Kevin Pitts and Andy James are going to be starting on the outside. Both of them have very good speed, so it's going to be difficult to beat them downfield unless we catch them flat-footed for whatever reason. They also have a solid nickel corner in Brett Miller. He's a 79 overall. He's got great speed as well, 93 speed, and also great zone coverage as well, 90 zone coverage, 86 play recognition as well. And to make up, and they have those nice corners because they have to make up with it, from the corner position, because safety isn't that great. Free safety, they have a bunch of young players that haven't gotten much experience playing college football yet, but Patrick Whitmore, he's a 70 overall, a freshman redshirt though, so he's a promising guy going forward. And then at strong safety, Kenny Miller is starting out there. He's from, I'm not going to even pronounce that. He's from New York. He's 6'2", 197, with Brad Anderson backing him up. Finally, their kicker is Justin Fernando from Mansfield, Ohio. He has 85 kick power and 79 accuracy. He's considered one of the better players on the team, with punter Kelvin Henderson from Finneytown, Ohio. He is considered a punter on this squad. So, since we are 3/4 of the way through our very first season back playing college football, let's go ahead now and take a look at the conference standings in the MAC Conference. And on the west side, what hurts the most about our last game against Rose-Hulman is that going into that game, they were second to last in our division, and we got absolutely blown out by them. And so that really hurts for pride, and it really shows the gap that we have to deal with, at least initially, between us and the rest of the conference. We have a lot of work to do just, to be competitive in this conference in general, outside of the Transylvania game, of course. But Manchester currently sitting on top. They're 6-0 in conference play, and they have wins against Hanover and Anderson as well. So Manchester, their next game is against Capital. So if Manchester wins that game, they're going to be going to the conference championship game and play whoever is winning for that Western Division. Now, a couple other teams to watch out for: Hanover and Anderson. They're each tied for second place in the MAC West, with Franklin and Rose-Hulman not too far behind for the most part, with the exception of us, unfortunately. This is a very competitive division. Over on the east side, and it looks like Defiance College is currently sitting on top. They're 5-1 in conference play with a 6-3 overall record. They have 3 more games against Mount St. Joseph, Bluffton, and for their final game of the season, they do play against Transylvania. And I'll tell you what, man, this is a situation where, Wittenberg and Mount St. Joseph, they're still in it. Now, Defiance did beat Wittenberg, but they're still not too far behind. Mount St. Joseph, they can win against Defiance College. They can get back into this thing, but as of right now, Defiance has the inside track with the Bluffton Beavers. They're sitting at 3-3 as well, and Capital, surprisingly, with a tough season. They're only 1-8 overall with a 1-5 conference record. The same thing that we got going, except with a much worse team. So now we'll go into the top 25 poll here in our Dynasty, and this hurts me a little bit as an Ohio State fan, but Michigan is currently ranked number 1 in the nation with a 10-0 record, with Texas not too far behind. They're the only 2 teams with first place votes. LSU and Iowa, as well as Oklahoma, round out the top 5 as well. On top of that, Penn State, they took their first loss of the season to Michigan, and they fall down 3 spots as a result of that. Ohio State is 8-1 though, and they, their only loss came to Iowa, so no shame on that. The Big Ten looking really strong this season. Rounding out the top 10, we have the Florida Gators, UCLA Bruins, and the Oregon Ducks rounding out that top 10. Meanwhile, the highest ranked team in our conference, the Manchester Spartans, they're sitting at number 11 in the nation, with Clemson, a team that we faced early on in the season. They're in the top 15 as well. They're number 12 in the nation. Their only loss is to Georgia Tech, which was a surprising one, if that. Otherwise, they would probably be ranked much higher, because they're like a 6-star program in this game. With Syracuse, TCU, and Air Force rounding out that top 15. Into the latter half of the top 25, Georgia is 8-2 and is ranked number 16 in the nation. Meanwhile, Auburn actually hops into the top 25 again. They're ranked number 18 in the nation. You'll love to see that. However, Washington takes a big dip after they surprisingly lose to Oregon State, with Notre Dame at number 20 in the nation. And for the final teams in the top 25, there's Oklahoma State, Alabama, Colorado, North Carolina as well. They, make it to the top 25, and surprisingly Kansas. Kansas known as a basketball school, but not here necessarily. They can get it done on the football field as well. Les Miles doing a good job over there. And finally, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a recruiting update now. For the most part, we've signed all the players that we originally went after. Most of the recruiting work for us has been taken care of, and it's mostly 3-stars coming to the squad as well, so we should see a big boost in our overall come season 2. But there's 4 guys that we're still going after, and until all 4 of these guys sign, we cannot add new players on the board. So we have 17 players on our board right now. We have to wait till these 4 guys sign somewhere before we can add players onto our recruiting board. As we'll now go ahead and take a look at the first player that we're currently going after, Omar Andrews. We have opened things up. We have built a lead against Bluffton, and there's a decent chance that he'll sign with us after this week. Bluffton is getting close to the cutoff for schools to be considered, and if we can get him before week 13, I think this guy will be a lock to sign with the Earlham Quakers. It just really depends on how these next couple of weeks turn out. If not, then I could see this being a recruiting battle going to the offseason, and it's something that we need to win because we need to bolster that offensive line. Up next, we have David Allen from Brea, California. And from the last time that we met with him, it was a 2-way race. Nevada was sort of in it, but now it comes down to 2 schools. San Jose State and Earlham College is going after him. And right now, it's not looking great for us. We're actually losing ground on David Allen. And San Jose State, they still have their visit for the final game of the season over in week 14. So things don't look good for us. We already lost out on 1 tailback this season. I do want to sign at least 1 running back, going into the season 2, because Aaron Ball, he's just not very quick for halfback. I actually might move him to the fullback position, depending on what happens here. But right now, it looks like David Allen is a, favorite to go to San Jose State, but we're certainly not going to give up on him yet. We still have, playing time. He'll immediately be a starter. That gives us an edge for the most part. We'll see what happens here. Another offensive lineman that we're going after is Ryan Yates, and even though he's only a 1-star guy, that 57 overall is not too terribly bad. I do like to see that. He does have decent blocking abilities with that 70 pass block and 67 run. Right now, it's a little bit surprising of a recruiting battle. We're involved against Rose Holman. Each of us have done a visit, and now it's just a fight to see who ends up getting this guy at the end of the day. I still think we're a favorite to sign him, but this has turned into a little bit closer recruiting battle than I envisioned. And even though he is only a 1-star guy, he's still a body and to help bolster up this roster, because as of right now, we only have 45 healthy players, but it doesn't account for our kicker and punter. So we need this guy just for the sake of having depth, and it's most likely that he'll be a starter for us in Season 2 if he does decide to come to Earlham College. And finally, the last person that we are still going after is Jerry Henley. he's a decent speed guy. Doesn't do anything great, but he's a jack of all trades kind of guy. We're locked with him against Transylvania. They want this guy badly as well. I think we took not sure who we took away from him, but Transylvania originally, it seemed like they were going to get him, but we have really closed in on him. Now, they still have their visit for week 12, so that could hurt us a little bit, but again, I still think that he is a favorite to sign for us here at Earlham College. I would love to bring this kid onto our squad for the sake of helping with the ability to stop the run. Taking a look at our pipeline states, though, and we'll still be able to retain Texas and California. That being said, Indiana should become a pipeline state for us, which is really good. Now, part of our house rules is we can recruit pipeline states, and we can also recruit our home state of Indiana as well going forward. And we are very fortunate that, with the randomized walk-on roster, that we got Texas and California, because those are obviously some very good pipeline states to have. And I want to make sure to maintain that. I'm a little concerned for the future, though. We only got 2 guys from Texas, and thankfully we got a lot of folks in California. But again, not a lot of guys that were interested in us in these pipeline states. It might be a problem for us going forward. On a more positive note, though, even though the product on the football field has certainly not been pretty, we have been able to put together a really good recruiting class despite the house rules that we did set for ourselves in this dynasty. We have the 36th ranked recruiting class as of right now. We have 13 prospects signed. We have 11 free stars and 2 2-star guys for us right now. And we have one of the better recruiting classes in our conference. Hanover is a little bit ahead of us. They have 2 4-star guys, though, so that really takes it up a notch. And then Manchester, they have a top 25 recruiting class as well. But other than that, I don't see any other teams in our conference that have a higher recruiting class ranking than we do. So to have the 3rd best recruiting class in our conference, that's going to be really helpful. And especially because a lot of the guys that we're signing, they're going to be starting, and I know all of them are going to get immediate playing time. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Big Earl Football Podcast. Next episode related to the Earlham Quakers Dynasty in NCAA 14. We are going to have some gameplay with Franklin College, who's currently 4-5. It should be a good one, so do me a favor and please smash that like button for me, as well as hit subscribe if you want to be brand new and like what you see here as well. This is John J. Gaming on the mic signing off, but hoping you're all out there having a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.